I've been doing concrete countertops now for about 9 years. I started as a home builder, and I saw these in a magazine and thought they were exceptionally cool and decided to start doing them. So I went and took a couple of classes and got right in the middle of it and went for it. Along the way I made a lot of mistakes and had to do a number of them over, and that's the thing you'll understand about concrete countertops. Every now and then it's just pour it over and start again. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, doesn't mean you did anything majorly wrong. Sometimes the humidity, the temperature, something that you didn't plan on kicks in. We're going to talk predominantly about precast countertops today. And by that, those are cast in the shop. You go to the job site, wherever you're at, make a template, bring the template back, transfer it to a mold, build a mold, and then cast it. The reason I prefer this, I've done cast in place. I've done a lot of cast in place, and I still do cast in place, particularly outdoor kitchens. I found that it works really well there. But cast in place is a little scary when you're sitting on somebody's $15,000 worth of cabinetry and you're in their kitchen trying to cast a countertop on top of that, because it's a messy business. I don't care how much you mask off, tape off, and everything else. Something's going to leak somewhere that you don't count on. It's just the nature of the beast. And then you spend an extra 5 or 6 hours cleaning up, and hopefully it does clean up, or you have really good insurance. One of the two. You know, that's part of it. So when you cast it, when you do precast, you're doing it all in your own shop space. You're able to determine the temperature, the humidity, the environment, everything in there. You can control that to a greater or lesser degree. That allows you to know just pretty much how your mix is going to turn out. You can set it in there. You don't worry about the electrician coming in and getting on top of your countertop the day after you poured it with a step ladder to fix a light. And you come back and your countertop's cracked and nobody will own up to putting the ladder on it, you know, like you do in cast in place. So precast, you bring them in, you set them, and you're pretty much out of there the next day. I'm going to start here in a minute with building a template. We're going to use this as a cabinet top. We just gathered up what we could gather up. Tools I've got here for making a template, fairly straightforward. Extension cord, hot glue gun. I've had all these in my box for years. Tape measure, square, set of shears, Sharpie, hot glue, and a gauge for determining the overhang. That's pretty much all it takes to build a template. And the template is one of the most important things you'll do at the start of your countertop. If the template's wrong, no matter how pretty a countertop or how good a job you do, if it doesn't fit, it isn't right. So making the template's the biggest first part we'll do. Here's the material I use is basically floor underlayment, Luan, rip it into 3-inch strips. I like 3-inch because you get a little larger gluing surface when you go with your hot glue. Allows you for different sizes of overhangs. It's just easier, and you've got plenty of, I have notoriously bad handwriting. So I've got more room to scribble on it and erase things and do them over if I screw it up. We're going to cover how to do well, I've done them around logs, templated around logs, posts, all kinds of things. So we'll show you how to do irregular shapes here in a minute.
What did you call this?
Luan. Yeah, it's a floor underlayment. It's basically like a real cheap mahogany plywood. It's about I think $7 or $8 a sheet. I tried using tempered masonite, you know, tempered hardboard, and it's slick, and it works just long enough to get it in the back of the pickup before all the glue joints come loose, and you're messing with it. So I don't suggest that. The glue doesn't stick well to it. This, it sticks pretty good too. They make this in 1/8 inch if you can find it. We used to buy them in skins all the time. If you've been in the construction business for any amount of time, they used to make these buy little skins, and they were basically one layer, and they were a lot easier to cut. These are kind of hard to cut. When I'm doing a template, the first thing I do when I come in is I look at what I've got, and we're just going to have to use our imagination a little bit here. Let's say our sink is right here in the center. I usually start where the sink is. That's the focal point of any kitchen or bathroom for that matter. If the sink's not squared up, it just looks really bad. So I'll come in here, grab my shears, set some of these like this. Cut these to begin with on the sides. And let's do one more. And we'll do the length. And just basically get the pieces rough cut. You don't have to be real precise on this because you can move them around and glue them where you need them. I'll show you that in just a sec. Now then, a couple things to keep in mind, and this is really important. If you get a countertop that's between two walls, you can't make your template tight to the wall, because if you do, it won't fit. You'll never get it in there. Well, you will eventually after some drywall comes out and stuff. So what I do is if I'm doing it tight to a wall, I keep all these little pieces in here and I glue a little piece to the wall just like this. A little tap just to hold it out on each side, on each end and across the back. That gives you some working room, which is really, really important because as you all know, some of y'all drywall stuff, when you're taping and stuff, it always builds up on the corners. It's a little tight there. It's hard to get to. So you run into those kind of issues, and they're usually not square. It's just the nature. They look good, but you know, you're not. They're not like a machinist built it, you know, and everything's to tolerances. So let's say you want a 1-inch overhang. I make one of these up just because it's easier than using a tape measure all the time. Slide that out. Every now and then I'll move back on you a little bit. Grab my Sharpie. And I usually just put a little dot right there. And you can do the edges as well, an inch or so out. An inch is fairly common. Drawer fronts and stuff are usually 3/4 of an inch thick. An inch allows you a 1/4 inch to clear that. Some people like 1.5 inches. Occasionally I'll get somebody that wants a 2-inch overhang, and that's why I've got a 2-inch notch on there, but they're pretty rare. Usually about an inch. Just line it up, push it out, and that'll be the back of our wall. We'll leave it there. The gun's almost hot enough. I like the longer sticks when I can get them. Easier to. Put that there. Where's my little. There. You can do a couple of things. When I first started out, we used to take some little thin, real small nails and get them lined up and put a tack in them here. And then I realized, you know, I'm tacking into somebody's cabinets and bad things can happen. So normally what I'll do is I'll just stick a little dab of glue under here when I get it close. And let it sit. Make sure I'm at my 1 inch. Put a little dab under there. Hold it for a minute and let it set. And then you can line everything up from there. So you can go around, take the back of this, square it up. And another thing is I've found that cabinets are not always put in square, and always follow the cabinet or it looks really bad unless the cabinets are horrific. And you can try and kind of adjust, do that by eye.
We're just intrigued by the use of the glue gun, I think.
Well, what's nice about it is any kind of weird or obtuse shape, you can pretty much figure out a way to fit something to it. And it works really well. So now we're gonna template this. Let's say you've got some funky old hippie house like we have in New Mexico, where I come from, and they put a log like this through the middle of their countertop, and you've got a template to this. So basically, grab your piece here. Okay. Start out and encircle it like that. I happen to have this leftover rip here. And then you cut a bunch of pointed pieces. Hope I didn't hit anybody. We'll get a workman's comp claim here. You cut a bunch of these little pieces just like this. And now then you can start gluing those into place and let them touch the edge. So, because the circle is nothing but a series of points connected, and it doesn't matter. And when you get to really interesting places, make sure you cut plenty of them. And you just start your glue gun around. I hope that's giving you some kind of idea. And we'll just go ahead and finish this up in a moment. What if you've got an irregular wall across the back? I don't know if any of y'all have been in houses where the back wall's like this. And you can do the same thing like this right up to the rock.
Just go down.
And just lay it down and then build your mold to fit that.
Okay.
Or if you've got just a crooked wall, I put this first piece in. This is my wall piece. I put it in straight, just let it straight. And everywhere there's a bend, I'll push it out. I'll push it in, whatever it happens to be, all the way down it so it follows it. So that when you slide it up. Now you've got a little room for a backsplash, but sometimes these bends will not cover with even a 1/2 inch backsplash. There can be that big a dip in the wall. And it'll look pretty good till you get up there and actually lay something straight against it, and you go, holy cow, that's really, really bad. And we don't have any adobe houses here in Oklahoma, but in New Mexico, where I come from, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, some of them will go just like that, and you're in there, and to make it fit, you want to just go ahead and make sure you've got everything touched up all the way around. Gonna start gluing up?
I'm gonna start gluing.
Awesome. Glue these big pieces down first.
Okay.
All right. Just glue those down. And go all the way around, get the large ones. If you know that you're gonna have something like this at a site, I cut them on a chop saw at home. And sometimes you don't know you're gonna have it, and till you get there. But usually they'll tell you, I've got a log we want to go around, can you do that? And I'll go, yeah, we can. We're going to cut it in a few minutes and we'll figure out where we want the seam. And then what I've done in the past on those seams, we'll get into that a little bit later, but I put a pin in it to line it up with, and it makes it work pretty well.
I don't understand what them little points are.
Well, if you use a large piece like this,
Yeah.
it'll work most of the time, but every now and then,
You'll see later whenever
when we pull this off, it won't take the complete detail of it.
Oh, okay.
And with this, you get in there a little closer, a little better detail, that's all. And on these, sometimes you'll find like this is round here. You'll get to the site and it'll be a little small, and just take your grinder and fit it. Because there's really no way to keep it totally flat templated. So you've got to do some handwork at the site, and that's not uncommon at all. I'll go ahead and fit things. Every now and then, even the best of templating, when you go around stuff like this, you wind up having to take a grinder and touch it up and make sure it fits. I've got one I'm doing in pink, and I've got a 45-degree angle with a post right in the center of the 45, one on the other end, and you want them all the way around it. So I've got a seam there, on top of rock wall, and I'm going to pin it all together. And it's going to be real interesting when we go to install, trying to get this post in and that post in at the same time. But I think I've got it figured out. If not, you'll probably hear me screaming.
Right here in this corner, would you do one there, or would you go like this?
I'd probably go like that. Yeah, the simplest is the best. Do it as simple as you can. Yeah, see, now this is a prime example of how you're going to have to grind that out when you get ready to install.
Right.
Because your countertop's going to be this thick. And so going underneath that, not a problem. Just go ahead and do it that way. But you know, when you're doing it, remember, yeah, I'm going to need to bring the grinder because we're going to have to touch that up. Or take that countertop and cut the back side of it underneath to make it fit. And that's fairly easy to do with a grinder.
Might need some long ones for this area right through here.
Okay. Long pointy ones?
Long pointy ones, yeah.
And you just take your time and do it. I did one in Angel Fire and had a big gnarly tree trunk in it, and we went all the way around it. When we finished, it looked like the tree grew out of the countertop. I did take the grinder to the top though, like half a dozen times, slid it in, fitted it. But you know, you're just taking off a little tiny bit each time. And there's some longer ones right there.
Okay, thank you.
At what point would you, this would probably be one piece, right?
This would be one piece. The little, where to seam them? Myself, I deliver them up to 12, sometimes 14 feet long in one piece. That said, that's not particularly easy to do, and you've got to be we'll go over reinforcement in a little bit on that and some things, and how to handle them. Normally, when I first start out, I seamed them at about 8 feet. That was the size of my melamine, so I got away from having a funky joint wherever these things butted up. That was always an issue. I'll show you how to do that when we build molds, how not to have that. And we'll talk about molds and stuff a little bit later, but anyway, yeah, at about 8 feet.
8 feet.
And the other thing is, when I'm seaming, if I can seam it dead center of the sink, that's where I'm going to seam it. Simply because you're only seaming about this much here and this much here, so your chance of getting a really good joint go way up. When you're doing, and I don't do long 45s in the corners myself. If the counters are slightly out of level, you'll have this, and it's very difficult to get in underneath that and fix that. There's a few things you can get. Braxton Bragg has a leveler that you can buy and seam, and it'll pull the joint tight, and you can level it up with some screws. But again, sometimes getting into a corner in cabinetry is really, especially if you're my size, it's really, really difficult, you know. So those are things you got to think about ahead of time. So a lot of times I'll make the corner and then seam over here. I try to keep my seams as short as possible. Sometimes you make the seam part of the decorative look. You can put a wave in it. I've done a couple of dovetails in them where they look like they're dovetailed together. Those kind of things, you can do those type of things to make them look a little cleaner. Number of different things on the seams. Big thing is making sure that when you cut, I'll show you when I'm going to cut this template in a minute. I'll show you what to be aware. We're going to cut it here, and we'll probably just cut it here just to show you how to do a seam.
So is this going to be?
Let's say this is a supposedly.
The tree all the way through? Or?
Let's say it was all the way through and all the way up the ceiling. You know, you normally wouldn't have somebody just stick a stump in the middle of their countertop, but you will find them with logs and stuff coming through them, particularly in some of your higher end, you know, like lake homes around here, or log homes and that kind of stuff. You'll find things like that. So we all glued up?
Close.
Pretty close? Man, it's looking good.
Is the material a lightweight concrete, or is it?
It's concrete. It's not particularly lightweight. I'll show you how to keep the weight down when we do this, but no, it's concrete's concrete. It's going to weigh some. And I haven't had any luck with the quote lightweight mixes. They usually use an aggregate in them to lighten them up, like pumice or something. It doesn't polish well. There's some issues with it. Basically, a Portland sand mix is about as standard and as good as you're going to come by.
So an 8-foot cabinet or top would weigh about?
About 150 pounds. No, it really is. I install them by myself all the time. I've got a cart that I built. I roll them in, roll the cart up, install them. I did a 12-footer by myself the other day with a 4-footer. Huh?
Nothing like a piece of granite.
It's about like a piece of granite.
Well, granite probably a little heavier, isn't it?
You know, I honestly don't know. It depends.
Thinner, so your weight's real similar because the concrete is thicker than what most granite is.
Yeah.
You know, your granite countertops are normally only inch to inch and a half or less.
Yeah.
And these are thicker, so your weight is going to be very comparable.
Okay, so we've got this all glued up now, and we're going to figure out where to seam it. Let me put my knife right here.
So is that still your sink right there?
Yeah, we're just going to call it a sink. This is for fun.
Okay.
All right. While we're doing that, let's just lay out how we'd lay out for a sink. Let's see, I stuck my Sharpie where? Yeah. Okay, when I'm laying out a sink, I find the cabinet doors on the front. I get dead center of the cabinet doors, because that's what's going to, when you walk in, your eye's going to follow that line. It's going to go right up to the faucet right there. And if it doesn't, and it's sitting over here, just, you know, half an inch, it'll make you, she's smiling. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'll mark center, and I'll write sink next to it. I'll come back, and I'll reach up. Normally you can reach through the countertop, and I'll mark the inside edge of the cabinet with my Sharpie on the bottom of the template, so I know how big my opening actually is. So I've got that. And then I come around here and I'll put an arrow here, and I'll write wall. Just going to the wall, so I know where everything is when I'm laying it. My finished edge, I put a diamond, or a triangle I should say, just like this. At this point, we'll determine what type of finished edge we're going to use. They'll say, oh, we want a chipped stone edge, we want a simple round over, whatever. I'll write what type of edge goes on this, on my template. So I'll say chipped stone. Stone edge, we'll mark that. We'll mark, if there's a dishwasher, I'll come in here and I'll mark where the cabinet is on the dishwasher, and I'll put dishwasher. The reason for that is it's a clear span there, and I want to remember that I've got a dishwasher here to bring a bracket to attach my dishwasher to before I set my cabinets. I've got a little bracket you set right on top of the cabinet, nail it down, set your countertop on top of it, and then your screws go into that for installation. So you come around here and mark all of this. And now then on this, we're going to cut it so we can get it off. A lot of times when I'm at the site, I'll simply cut my template, take it loose, glue it back together, and take it to the shop and determine how I want the seam to look at that point, especially on something that's really irregular like this, because it's really hard to go, yeah, we're going to seam it just like this, and you get to the shop and it changes your entire plan. So what I do is I take a knife, I'll mark me a little wiggly line like that. You come around here and see, and basically all the line acts as is a register. I'll come around this back side, or if I can't get to the back side, I'll do it on the side wherever. And I'll wiggle that so I can line my cuts up. Because even though they look like you've got them lined up, they don't always line up. And if you have a little wiggle like this, you're pretty much okay. Okay. Get that piece like that. That. I don't know what I lost. Something. This little piece probably didn't glued, but it's all right.
Back piece.
A back piece. Oh, good. And then we'll take that piece there. Line up your marks, just like that. Now they're all lined up. And you can take a little piece like this and just glue right over the top or underneath it, and take it back to the shop. Make that real simple. This is usually where I get burned.
Well, if you don't burn me, man, you will get along.
It'll be all right, huh? Right, there we go. Let's see, shears. Well, it did stick. Good job, Brad.
Or your helper.
No, it was me. It was me. I can't blame you on that one. Now, what happens if it gets stuck? You can take a heat gun and just heat the glue up and wiggle it around. So if you get a piece that's stuck on and it's in the wrong place, and what I do is I'll take like a putty knife and I'll heat the putty knife up and I'll just slip it along the glue and it'll come right off.
It's this corner right here that's getting you.
Yeah. not terribly.
Get it on that.
Yeah, well, I'll do this other one over here and mess with it in a minute. That's already dry. Let me get this bottom one here. Not real important. As long as we've got it together, we're in pretty good shape. And that'll work. Okay. And that's pretty much,
You move that one again.
yeah. You need to have it in the middle, because if you're not, if it goes around that curve, and that's why I said take it back to the shop and make this piece up, because you want to be able to, so you want to be able that this piece can come out and not roll all the way around and hang up. So that's the biggest part of doing that, and that's why I said just cut it where you can get it loose. Take it back to the shop. Determine after you make this foam piece, and you make this out of foam, just determine at that point what it's gonna do for you. And at that point, you can lay this over a piece of foam. I didn't bring enough. I make all my knockouts out of this blue foam. Don't use styrofoam. Okay, it's a lot cheaper, but you can't sand it or do anything. It just goes into little bubbles. It's all right if you're doing something that doesn't have to have a smooth edge and you're just using it as a filler, but anything else, styrofoam's just doesn't cut it. The high density blue foam, I get this at Maxwell Supply in Oklahoma City. I think they're the only one that stocks the thicker stuff. Home Depot and Lowe's, I think they go to like 3/4 of an inch thick. To get 2 inches or 1.5 inches, just go there and buy a sheet. It's expensive. It's about like, I think the last piece of 2-inch foam I bought was $48 a sheet. But you're going to get 7 or 8 sink knockouts out of it, you know, the centerpieces out of it. It's really not that expensive when you look at it, especially in the total cost of the job. It doesn't eat you alive. And you can also make your molding, edge molds and stuff out of it as well. This is really important when you're doing it. Make sure you have the sink and the faucet. If you don't have those, you can't go forward from that point. You can build the template and mark the center, but you can't build a mold without the sink or the faucet. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, you don't know what you're doing. There's too many of them, and even like I use the same sinks over and over. I still check each sink with my template when I take it out of the box, because I found that they're not consistent the time when you get on stainless sinks. So be real careful with that.